Okay, my friend, let's talk about a way you can get way more out of your tungsten, because I see a ton of people waste way too much of it for no reason. Okay, here's what is really common. Somebody's gonna take a look at their tungsten, and after taking a look at their tungsten and seeing that it's in this kind of shape, oh my gosh, obviously they realize it's time to redo this one and start with a fresh one. Now, while it is absolutely awesome that somebody realized that they have to do this, but here's what is common that I see most people do. Fly. What most people are gonna commonly do is grab a hammer or some pliers or something like that, and they are gonna break or snap the end of the tungsten off to get fresh material. Now, doing it this way, there actually is absolutely nothing wrong with this. Getting a fresh end with some fresh material on your tungsten is always a great idea. It's gonna help you to get rid of any cracks or contamination on the tungsten surface. Preparing your tungsten all the way from scratch again, this is the best way so that when you arc up, you get great starts with smooth arc control. Flies back, get out of here. But what if I told you that there was another way to do this? There was a better way to get a fresh start with a clean tungsten so you can start over. You can end up with a tungsten like this, and the best part is you don't have to break off and waste so much tungsten. Now, even back in the day when I first started my job TIG welding, instead of smashing the end of my tungsten off to start from scratch, and believe me, back in the day, I dipped a lot. I act like I don't dip anymore. I still do, a lot actually. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Where the heck was I? Now, instead of using up a bunch of tungsten, breaking it off all the time, do this instead. Now, before we get going, make sure you are wearing eye protection as well as proper breathing protection. Now, when redoing your tungsten, it doesn't really matter what preparation you actually prefer using. First thing I recommend doing is buzzing about the first couple millimeters or about 1/8 of an inch off the tip of your tungsten. You can see that here I am doing it with a belt sander with a fine grit. This is a clean belt. It is not cross-contaminated with other types of metal. Now, after you've buzzed the end of the tungsten off and removed any contamination or cracks on the end of it, what I'm gonna do next is I'm actually gonna grind back a bit of a taper on the tungsten. We're gonna do this lengthwise like you see here. Now, for the length of the taper, I always recommend doing this so that the length is approximately 2 times the thickness of your tungsten. So for example, if you are using a tungsten diameter of 1/8 of an inch or 3.2 millimeters, the length of the taper that you are going to grind is approximately 1/4 of an inch or 6.4 millimeters. Get out of here, fly, you're pissing me off. What I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna have a quick look at the tungsten. After grinding it, I will be able to see clearly if there is any cracks or blemishes left over. Using a finer grit, the smoother grinding job that you can do, the easier it's gonna be to see little blemishes or little cracks like that. Now, if everything looks great, I'm actually gonna take this a step further. Keeping the tungsten in a drill like this here, I am then going to take my drill and spin my tungsten over a piece of Scotch-Brite pad. Now, the pad itself is not coarse enough that as I do this, it's not going to make any radial grinding marks. It is going to take the grinding job that I just did and make it much smoother. It's also going to make it even easier to inspect and make sure you got rid of any blemishes or cracks. And then at this point, you can basically just prepare the tungsten however you prefer. Again, at this point, you can skim back another little flat spot on the end if you prefer. You can even leave it like this with a blunted tip, or at this point, you can put a ball on it, whatever. I personally prefer to put a small ball on the end of the tungsten. To be honest, I can prepare this to have the ball as small as I can get it. This is gonna provide me with really clean starts as well as good control of my arc as I am welding. And to be honest, if I don't feel like fine-tuning my balance completely, having a small ball on the end of the tungsten is gonna allow me for a little bit of inaccuracy with my balance setting. You're not gonna see the tip of the tungsten wobble around or do anything crazy. So what we have done here now has saved us a ton of tungsten. Honestly, we have used about less than half of the tungsten we would have had we have broken it off. Honestly, some of the pieces of tungsten that I have here, I have been using for like over a year. This tip saves me a ton of tungsten. So go ahead, next time you gotta redo a tungsten, save yourself some material. Take what I've given you here as far as tips into consideration before breaking off the end of your next tungsten. You should check this episode out next. This is the mother of all classes that I have done on YouTube here before. This goes over all the most important settings to keep your tungsten in good shape as you are welding. Check that one out next, it's gonna help you out a lot. Do a random act of kindness for a stranger today. My name is Dusty, fill and chill. We will talk soon. Peace.